Ever heard of the legendary prison escapes of El Chapo? Let's dive into his story. This journey begins in 1993 with the first arrest of the infamous drug lord Joaquin Guzman, better known as El Chapo. Having gained notoriety as the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, El Chapo made his first mark on the world stage when he was captured and extradited to Mexico. However, this was no ordinary criminal. El Chapo was a mastermind, and the confines of the high-security Puente Grande prison were no match for his cunning. In 2001, he did the unthinkable. He escaped. Slipping through the fingers of the authorities, El Chapo was back on the streets, once again heading the notorious Sinaloa cartel. His first escape had been a success, a victory for the underworld, a defeat for the authorities. But freedom didn't last for long. El Chapo was once again in the authorities' crosshairs. In February 2014, El Chapo found himself back behind bars. Yet this wouldn't keep him for long. El Chapo, the notorious drug lord, was no stranger to the cold confines of a prison cell. But this was a man who had made a career out of evading the law, and his second stint in prison would prove to be no different. His children, loyal to their father's cause, hatched an audacious plan. They bought a property adjacent to the Altiplano, a high-security prison in Mexico. This was no ordinary real estate investment. It was the first step in an audacious plot to free their father from his cell. And then came the second step, a watch. But not just any watch. This was a watch equipped with a GPS feature. A tool that would not just count the seconds of El Chapo's imprisonment, but would also serve as a beacon of hope, a guide towards freedom. This high-tech timepiece found its way into the prison and onto the wrist of El Chapo. It was through this watch that excavators outside the prison walls could pinpoint his exact location. Armed with this vital piece of information, they began their work, digging tirelessly, inch by inch, a trench from the property to the prison. It was like a scene from a Hollywood movie. But this was no fiction. This was the audacious reality of El Chapo's world. And so, in 2015, through this meticulously planned and executed tunnel, El Chapo made his escape. The iron bars and prison walls that had once held him captive were now just a memory. El Chapo was out, and this time, he was ready to brag about his empire. He was not just a fugitive. He was a symbol of defiance, a man who had once again slipped through the fingers of the law, a man who was ready to reclaim his throne at the helm of the Sinaloa cartel. And the world was watching, waiting to see what the infamous El Chapo would do next. Basking in his liberty, El Chapo sat down for a provocative interview with American actor Sean Penn in 2016. He was no longer a fugitive hiding in the shadows, but a man who was audacious enough to meet a Hollywood star and articulate his own narrative. El Chapo, with a brazen swagger, claimed to be the world's main supplier of heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana. He didn't just see himself as a drug lord. In his own eyes, he was the kingpin of an empire that spanned continents, an empire built on the production and distribution of illicit substances. But his audacity came at a price. His interview, along with his high-profile lifestyle, only served to heighten the resolve of law enforcement agencies to apprehend him. And so, the net began to close once more. In the early hours of the morning in Los Mochis, a city in northwestern Mexico, security forces stormed one of his hideouts. El Chapo, ever the escape artist, managed to slip away once more. This time he used the city's drainage system as his getaway route, evading the authorities in the most inconspicuous way possible. But his luck did not hold. He was finally cornered after an intense exchange of gunfire with law enforcement. The man who had been a specter, slipping through the fingers of the authorities time and time again, was finally captured. The saga of El Chapo seemed to have reached its climax. But the final act was yet to unfold. After his capture, a Mexican judge made a decision that would seal El Chapo's fate. He ruled for his extradition to the United States. This time El Chapo was heading to a place he couldn't escape from, the United States. His legendary escapes had been from Mexican prisons, but now he was to face the stern and unyielding justice system of a different nation, a system known for its rigorous security and stringent sentences. His reign was over, and the curtain was about to fall on one of the most notorious criminal careers in history. Deported to the United States, El Chapo faced the full force of the American justice system. Here, in the land that was once his most lucrative market, he found himself on the defendant's stand, not a drug kingpin with a billion-dollar empire, but a prisoner awaiting his fate. The trial began in November of 2018, a spectacle that drew global attention. The charges were severe: 10 counts, including the operation of a continued criminal enterprise, conspiracy to commit murder, and money laundering. Above all, he was accused of smuggling an estimated $27.3 billion worth of narcotics into the United States. Over the course of 3 months, witnesses took the stand one after the other, each unfolding a piece of El Chapo's dark empire. Former associates, employees, even a mistress, all testified against him. They painted a picture of a man who was ruthless in his pursuit of power. A man who would stop at nothing to maintain his grip on the Sinaloa cartel. The jury deliberated for 6 days. On the 12th of February 2019, they returned with their verdict: guilty on all counts. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. El Chapo, the man who had once seemed untouchable, had been brought down by the very system he had spent his life evading. His sentence: life imprisonment plus 30 years, a symbolic addition reflecting the severity of his crimes. He was sent to ADX Florence, a maximum security prison in Colorado known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. It's a far cry from the luxurious lifestyle he once enjoyed, but for the countless lives affected by his actions, it's a fitting end. El Chapo's reign had finally come to an end. But his legacy lives on, a stark reminder of the dark underbelly of the drug trade. His story serves as a cautionary tale, a testament to the destructive power of greed and the inevitable fall that comes after the rise. The saga of El Chapo is over, but the war on drugs continues.